Welcome to the Fishbean channel, where we read classics, where we are high cultures and do book reviews. Book review! I always wanted to do the clapping thing. Finally did it. It's a bit old now, but that's fine. So I read the book series The Accused King from Maurice Druon. Probably do not pronounce the name correctly. I will not pronounce any of the names correctly because it's Italian names and French names. I'm so sorry. I know we have Italian viewers. So this book series is set around the French, I want to say Revolution. This book series is set around the 100 Years' War. And before especially of the 100 Years' War and a little bit the beginning of the 100 Years' War. You follow the French court and actors around the French court. Then it slowly starts expanding through the series in scope to other courts, to Italy, to the Papal See, and to the English court. Especially when the 100 Years' War is happening, we will get more focus on the English court too. Even the Netherlands makes an appearance, so that's pretty cool. Just because there's a knight from the Netherlands, so yay, Dutch person, yay! In short, I can say this book series is like Game of Thrones, but then set in historical Europe. Even, it says that George R. Martin, this random bloke, says that Game of Thrones was inspired by this book series. So this is the original Game of Thrones. If you didn't get it, that's the guy that wrote Game of Thrones. No way! Yes! Probably most people get it, but maybe it was one person, who knows. So every book usually follows a couple of characters. There is the ones of the court, like the first few books focus on the French court and then starts expanding to the Italian court, something with the Papal See, and then also with the English court in the final books where the 100 Years' War starts going and rolling. You follow a few characters in the courts, but you also follow a couple of main characters that are like the movers that move things in the background. We have Robert of Artois, who is a main character, but at the same time, kind of an antagonist to all the other characters in the book. He is a bit of a brute. He's tall, big, and you would assume if this was a normal book of fiction that he would be like a barbarian who doesn't know a lot, a bit stupid, but he is in the books also really smart. And he moves a lot of the plot with a lot of political intrigue. Still, he is a brute. When he goes to war, this guy does terrible things. And he does terrible things to get what he wants. But what I did like about the writer was when he writes Robert of Artois, who is a terrible person, you first get to know his character, and his character is really blunt, and it becomes a bit more endearing that you understand what's going on in his mind. So even later, when all the war crimes happen, but it weren't war crimes back then, you understand where he's coming from. You understand his character, and that's amazing. And I will not go too much because then I would start spoiling about his character. But another one is Guccio, Italian name. I will not try to pronounce the last name. I've also dyslexic, so probably all the names in my head are different. They're actually there. This is also a character. This is you would say minor political player, but he still influences a lot. So like Robert of Artois is doing a lot of the political influence from high up and behind the screens, and Guccio is like an Italian Lombard from Italy who is doing a lot of the groundwork, legwork. Like he has to deliver a letter and stuff like that. He feels like the insert character for the reader, but in the first book, the writer at least shows more his motivation, and that he's like a bit of a cocky young teenager who wants to conquer the world, go to the courts of Europe, date queens and princesses, do a lot of amazing things. Of course, reality has other plans, but it feels relatable, because if you're young, you go to school, you're young, you think you can destroy the world and change everything. There was one important lesson I learned from these books that I didn't know I needed to learn until I learned it. So let me tell you about it. When I was learning about Middle Ages in school, like we all have like a little bit of general history, I had to learn about that in the Middle Ages. They didn't have nation state, they didn't have countries like we have in modern times. It just worked different in feudalism. I knew that was a fact because I had to do it in my exams, but I never really experienced it. It's like learning all about color but never seeing color. So just going through the books, it kind of gave me that feeling, like the understanding of medieval politics, how it functioned. Even though that through my experiences, this is not the best experiences, right? But I have played video games, and I will talk now about video games, but it comes round back to talk about how that experience ties in. I played this medieval simulator, Crusader Kings, where you control political intrigue on a map with some dynasties. To myself, I played this game more like building a nation or looking at it through a modern point of view, even trying for myself to be immersed in the medieval politics. Another video game is I played Kingdom Come Deliverance, and in that game you start playing as a peasant. You go to a bar, you have a bunch of drunk people talking about the medieval politics, but because you're a peasant, it's more important be loyal to your king, be loyal to your neighbors, and screw the other bastards who you're at war with. The reason is not really clear, actually. The king is just evil.
What's going on here?
Deutsche spouting shit.
What?
Just listen and you'll hear for yourself.
Someone has to bring order and reunite the empire.
But later you meet nobles and they give you they start yapping about the real reason why there is war. Something with legitimacy and brothers and this and that. And it just went over my head. I just had that whole peasant experience and this noble is just yapping and screw it. The other guys are evil. But after getting through this book series, those 2 point of views kind of changed. Or even the first one from my school, all 3 point of view. I finally understood that nations weren't like countries. The kingdoms didn't function like countries or with cultures. Just by going through these books and trying to understand why there was conflict, why there was war, why people got angry and what emotions or feelings were behind it. Also, when now I play the Crusader Kings, the simulator from medieval politics, I now am better at getting myself immersed and role-playing it, because somehow I did read more the characters with a less of a modern point of view. And now with Kingdom Come Deliverance, that game, I finally am able to follow what the hell the nobles are talking about. So, what I got away from this book series is something I think is really incredible, because that's something you don't get if you just read history, or when you read primary source, because then you need to understand the context, or when you read papers. I think I got something like an experience. What I said, like seeing color instead of learning all about color but not being able to see color ever in your life. That's how it felt reading this book about medieval politics. So if I would recommend it, if you want to read this book, is if you want to get that point of view, that's an amazing bonus. Also, if you just want to learn about history, about the 100 Years' War through a book like this, there you go. So this was my book review. I will not give it a grade because I feel it is a bit arbitrary and I don't know, between 0 to 10s or whatever. I just recommend you reading the book series. And if you have other book series set in history, you probably know by now that I go through history in this channel. Feel free to recommend me anything from the Middle Ages or beyond the Middle Ages. And I will gladly read it. And thank you for watching. Feel always free to like and subscribe.